with me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2020 NFL Draft using our brand new grading scale. From 5 to 1, each pick will be assessed a score, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. We will then tally up all of those scores, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating 2 things, the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Browns next, Cleveland next, Clee next, Dog Pound. You get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the Cleveland Browns. 2019 was an abject disaster that I saw coming. I predicted that the Browns would fall flat on their face. A lot of people talked about the Browns potentially being in the AFC Championship game and them having so much talent. The talent part was correct, but what was made up of that talent and the people leading that talent was definitely not what the Browns needed. Thought Freddie Kitchens was a lost soul, didn't deserve to be the head coach of the Browns. That distinction should have gone to Greg Williams. That's another story for another day, but I thought Freddie Kitchens was in over his head, not to mention the bravado that he and Baker Mayfield displayed during the offseason leading up to the regular season showed me that these two were clueless and didn't need to be in each other's presence. So Freddie Kitchens, to me, just never seemed to get it as an NFL head coach. And maybe he will one day, but he wasn't ready for the job at this particular time. Baker Mayfield, we all know that this guy has a huge ego, lots of bravado, and the whole fake leadership thing that he pulled last offseason, including dragging Duke Johnson and his situation through the mud, really rubbed me the wrong way, rubbed some players in that locker room the wrong way. I just saw this thing going in the wrong direction, and boy, did it ever. But that being said, when you fail that epically, when expectations are so high, changes are usually made, and they needed to be made in this case. Love the fact that they've got a brand new head coach who I think is going to get the best out of Baker Mayfield. I think we're going to see Baker Mayfield play some of his best football, and he's going to look a lot more like the 2018 rookie version that got everybody excited heading into 2019, and less like the guy coming out of 2019 that people were a little skittish on. I think we're going to see Baker Mayfield play some of his best football under new head coach Kevin Stefanski. We saw what he was able to do for Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Dalvin Cook was a huge part of that offense. You've got all the weaponry you need. You've got a great running back and Nick Chubb and a bunch of ancillary parts at the running back position to help him out. You've got tremendous targets at the wide receiver position. You added some help at tight end in the offseason and free agency. You added another big piece here in the draft. Baker Mayfield is going to have a wealth of targets and skill players to get the football to. Stefanski runs a really good run scheme that also features a lot of play action fake and driving the football down the field, something that Baker Mayfield excels at. So I think Baker Mayfield is in a perfect situation. I think Kevin Stefanski is the right man for the job. And I love the fact that you have a brand new GM in Andrew Berry. And I think this first draft that Andrew Berry put together was magnifico. Mwah! A work of art. Andrew Berry comes in, he comes back home. He was in this organization before, and I think he put together a masterful 7-player selection here. And I'll tell you this much. If this draft and the offseason that preceded it is any indication of where the Browns are heading, you're in good hands with Andrew Berry. Let's take a look at what Andrew Berry put forth in his first NFL draft as a general manager of the Cleveland Browns. Let's take a look at the 7 selections. Every single one of the picks made by Andrew Berry and the Browns in this draft are on the screen in front of you. We will go through each of these selections one by one, break them down. I've got write-ups in front of me for each and every single one of those selections. I'll be reading from my write-ups as we go through these picks one by one, starting in the first round, 10th overall selection. Offensive tackle out of Alabama, Jedrick Wills the junior is the pick. 6'4", 312 pounds, 34-inch arms, 5'0", 540, 13 games, 13 starts at right tackle for Alabama, 39 games, 29 starts at right tackle for the Crimson Tide in his career. I had a first-round grade, obviously, on Jedrick Wills Jr. As a matter of fact, I had him as my number 2 tackle in this draft, right behind Mekhi Becton. And he was, in fact, the second tackle taken off the board. Surprisingly enough, though, the first tackle was not who we all expected in Andrew Thomas. He did come off the board first. We thought Andrew Thomas might be the third tackle taken in this draft, or maybe the fourth tackle taken, but that's nor here nor there. Wills came off the board right around where I thought he would come off the board, and you got yourself a hell of a football player, arguably the best tackle in this entire draft class. You talk about his strengths, well-proportioned. This is a guy that's well put together, man. There are some tackles that they're lean and they're tall, but they don't have the mass necessary. Or you got guys that are a little fleshy. They don't look the part. Maybe they're top heavy, don't have enough girth down on the bottom half of their body. He's well put together, man. Technically sound and savvy. He's one of the most technically sound tackles I've seen in the draft in a while, man. I mean, when you see this guy, he's like a machine. And I think, there's something to be said about these Alabama tackles, because last year I kind of felt the same way about the first round tackle that was drafted by Cincinnati. That, these guys are coached really well. Their technique is very quiet, especially in pass pro. Very, very quiet. I talk about him being like a typewriter. It's just swoop, whoop. Like, it's just clean. It's efficient. It's proficient. It's not a lot of wasted motion. Very, hands up and ready. Quick jab to keep a guy at bay. When he locks them up, he locks them up. Just a really technically sound. Feet are clean. Base is nice and firm. Everything you're looking for, he's got it here. No wasted motion. I just talked about that. Like I said, everything he does is efficiently done. And so I just love watching this guy work out at the tackle position. Can't be sped up. Every snap is played on his terms. That was one of the things I noticed, and you don't see that all the time when you watch tackles. Sometimes guys can be a little frenetic out of their stance. Maybe the guy in front of them invokes a little bit of fear, and so they feel like they've got to get out of their stance a little quicker, and they've got to open up their hips a little faster to be able to compensate for the speed that guy in front of them has. That's not the case with Jedrick Wills Jr. I mean, it doesn't matter who's in front of him. It doesn't matter who he's playing against. They all look the same to him, and he's playing the game at his pace. You're not going to speed him up. You're not going to make him uncomfortable. You're doing it at his pace, and you don't see a lot of tackles be able to control the game that way where you're going at their pace. Only the elite can do it that way, and he has those types of qualities. Forceful at the point of attack. Watching his highlight reels, first of all, it's usually not a lot of fun watching an offensive tackle's highlight reels. Okay, they usually don't do anything for me in particular. Maybe some guys out there really have a good time and get a hard on watching an offensive tackle hip toss guys and dump them on their neck. That's not my thing. But watching his particular highlights were just fun. Okay, this guy is slinging guys out of the bar. He's dumping guys on their neck, belly-to-belly suplexes, belly-to-back suplexes. I mean, it's all kinds of carnage when this guy really decides to rev it up and lay hands on someone. And so really, really forceful at the point of attack, creates a new line of scrimmage. He's got a mean streak. I call it pound cake. It's not a pancake, because a pancake is just simply knocking a guy to the ground and then plopping on top of them. Pound cake is different. That's when you pound a guy into the ground. It's a little bit different when you're taking a guy and belly-to-belly suplexing him or hip tossing him and then plopping on top of them. It's a little different. It hits different, okay? A pound cake feels different than a pancake. He's mean, okay? He's a nasty boy, all right? He's got a sturdy punch. I talked about that already as well, but I'll reiterate that. A nice, sturdy, firm punch that keeps guys at bay. You start to rev up the engine as a pass rusher, think you're going to put a move on him, and boom! All of a sudden, you get hit in your chest, knocks a little bit of wind out of your sails, and all of a sudden, you've got to re-rev the engine up. And a lot of times, guys aren't able to do that on a particular snap. So that punch really keeps guys at bay and allows him to keep the distance that he needs to continue to keep that guy in front of him. He's a good athlete, a really good athlete. That 5.0, 5.40 kind of speaks to that. Can get out in space, can get to the second level with ease, can get to those reach blocks. Anything you're looking for him to do, he can do that. He's a really good athlete. I talk about his feet already and how they're typewriter-like. And so typewriter feet are the next thing. Those nice little choppy steps and strides in his shuffle. Feet never click. Those heels never click. Just typewriter-like. I mean, really clean and smooth in his kick slide. So you just love to see it. You do. And then experience in the SEC and good recovery are the final two strengths. He's got tremendous recovery when he is beaten. On the off chance that he gets beaten, and it doesn't happen very often, he has the ability to rebound, save the rep by getting in there and pushing that guy around the quarterback to save and salvage the rep. And, you know, when you play in the SEC, you're playing up against some of the best talent that college football has to offer, especially out at the tackle position. Some of the best edge rushers reside in the SEC, and it's not just 1 year. It's year after year after year having to face that same competition and seeing some of the guys that come into the league, whether you're playing against Florida or you're playing against Auburn or you're playing against Georgia or you're playing against LSU, you know, the list goes on and on and on. And all these guys that you're playing against, a lot of them make it to the league. And so you're seeing NFL caliber talent on a weekly basis. So that definitely is something you cannot discount. Weaknesses. Technically doesn't possess he doesn't possess the height and length teams generally covet at the tackle position. I don't care anything about that. I'm not one to bring that stuff up. That's for everyone else to do. I only bring that stuff up when I see it as a problem. I'm never going to bring up a guy's height, number one, because I really don't care how tall my tackle is. As long as he has the ability to get the job done. I remember when we were talking Isaiah Wynn a couple of years ago when the Patriots took him, and there was a big much to do about nothing about his height and his arm length and were the Patriots going to kick him inside? What were they going to do with him? And they ultimately left him at tackle. If he can stay healthy, he's proven to be a really good left tackle, but got to stay healthy. But that's nor here nor there. I don't care about his height or his arm length. I think they're both fine, and we'll see if it works out for him or not. Can overexert or overextend on his initial punch in the run game. Sometimes I think he can be a little over-aggressive when he's firing off into the run game. And if you miss that initial punch and it's coming with such vigor and such force, if you miss, and you're done pretty much on that particular snap. So sometimes he can come off the line of scrimmage aggressive with a physical, got heavy hands, physical punch. And if it misses the target, you could see a tackle for loss, or you could see a play get blown up. So, not much here, man. Not really much to see in terms of weaknesses. This guy's the complete package, folks. And they needed this in Cleveland. Baker Mayfield was under duress a ton last season. And you go out, you make the move for Jack Conklin in free agency to shore up the right side. And I think you got your left tackle here in Jedrick Wills Jr., first round, 10th overall selection, tackle out of Alabama. Jedrick Wills Jr., for me, of course, is a 5. I think you got bookend tackles now, and now Baker Mayfield can rest assured that he's protected up front. Now he can do his business down the field. As we get to the next selection in this draft for the Browns, second round, 44th overall pick, safety out of LSU, Grant Delpit is the pick. 6'2", 213 pounds, was not able to put a 40 time on record, but I've got him pegged anywhere in the 4.39 to 4.46 range. He reportedly ran a 4.39 40 on his pro day. I don't buy it, but I'll just go with that as one of my baseline numbers. I think he's closer to the 4.46 than he is the 4.39. Whatever. We're splitting hairs about a sub 4.4 and a guy running in the mid 4.4s. Whatever the case may be, he's fast as hell for the safety position, and that's all you need to know. 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 7 PBUs, 2 interceptions in 14 games in 2019 for the national championship LSU Tigers. In his career, 17.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 24 pass breakups, 8 INTs in 40 games for the LSU Tigers. I had a second round grade on Grant Delpit. He goes in the second round. I think that's good value there. Grant Delpit, I believe, was my 4th safety in this draft. If not 4th, 5th. He ultimately was the 2nd safety, I believe, 3rd safety to come off the board behind the Alabama safety, and I believe the next safety to come off the board was I think it was the 2nd safety. If I'm not mistaken, he was the 2nd safety to come off the board in this draft. But anyhow, height, weight, speed specimen at 6'2", 213, running somewhere in the 4.4 neighborhood. He's got everything you're looking for in that regard in terms of a safety in this league. Plays a physical, aggressive brand of football. He's more of a banger and a thumper and a striker than he is a tackler. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's definitely looking to hit something. All right, something that's moving with 2 legs, 2 arms. He's going to hit it, whether it's his teammate or the opposition. He's looking to hit somebody. He plays a physical brand of football. Can come downhill as a striker or a blitzer. I love this guy in a blitzing capacity. I think that's something that the Browns need to make sure they utilize. He does a really good job of timing up blitzes, getting in there, and I think the 7 sacks in his career kind of spells that out. But he can also come down as a downhill striker in the box and be a physical presence that way as well. So I like when he's coming down near the line of scrimmage. I think he can do some damage down around the line of scrimmage. Outstanding in coverage, man or zone, and this is why, if not for the down season in 2019, remember, going into the 2019 college football season, Grant Delpit was viewed as a top 10 pick. His 2018 season was ridiculous. It was one of those seasons for the ages at the safety position, and everyone was drooling over Grant Delpit. And then he followed that up with a very not lackluster. For his standards, it was lackluster. For other guys in college football, that gets you drafted in the 2nd round. But for him, it dropped him out of the 1st round. And so, when you look at him, he was much better in coverage in 2018 than he was in 2019. And I'm hoping that he gets back to his 2018 form. He was dealing with an ankle injury. He had a high ankle sprain in 2019 that he gutted through the entire season. But I'm not sure if that's all to blame for, some of his mental mishaps and some of the things that we saw from him in 2019 that, he didn't do in 2018, whatever the case may be. This is a guy that I think can play both man or zone coverage and play them both equally as well. Versatility. This is a guy you can drop over the slot. He's very comfortable in man coverage over the slot. It's a guy you can play single high free safety, although you'd like to see him be a little bit more aware and be a little bit more instinctive as a single high free safety, but he can do it. He can play just the free safety position. He can play strong safety, come down in the box. I talked about him being a striker. I talked about him being an underneath zone defender. I talked about him blitzing. So he can rock and roll. He's what today's NFL safety looks like. A guy that can do a little bit of both. Get you a guy that can do both at the safety position. That's what teams are aiming for. Grant Delpit can do a little bit of both. Ball hawking skills, 24 pass breakups to go with 8 INTs kind of tells you that this is a guy that if you make a mistake in his general vicinity, you're going to pay for those mistakes. Again, 2018, much better film than that of 2019, but irregardless of the fact This is a guy that can play football and knows how to make plays when the ball is in the air. Toughness. I talked about him battling through a high ankle sprain and only missing one game in 2019. So for all intents and purposes, you saw a little bit of the toughness on display with Grant Delpit battling through injuries in what was a perfect season for his LSU Tigers. You get to his weaknesses, more of a striker than a tackler. This is an issue for me. Probably the biggest issue that I have with him right now is just too many missed tackles on tape. And you want to make excuses for him. Oh, that was a tough one there. Or, man, he was coming so fast. It wasn't going to take much to make a miss on that one. No, there's no excuse. You watch him in the Alabama game. That is a travesty. I counted 6 missed solo tackles in that game. And I get it. Alabama has some rugged and rough, tough runners, guys that make you miss out in space, or in the case of a Najee Harris, a guy can just flat out run you over. Doesn't matter. He missed 6 tackles, solo tackles in that game. Big plays where guys were able to extend drives and pick up first downs. You can't do that as a safety, okay? And so he wants to bop guys. He wants to come down and lay the hammer, drop the hammer on guys. And look, I want you to wrap guys up. I want you to wrap and roll. I don't want you banging guys around and having them bounce off of you, or you come and slide down a guy's ankle or down a guy's waist and miss the tackle. I need you getting guys on the ground, and he didn't do that enough for me at a high enough clip at LSU. And this wasn't just the 2019 thing. This is a problem that's plagued him throughout his LSU career. Takes poor angles in both run support and to the ball as a single high free safety. And that's kind of the reason why some people are a little apprehensive to stick him back there as a single high free safety. He's got the athleticism, obviously. He's got the ball skills. But, you know, when you take poor angles, you leave your cornerback out to dry, because that corner is assuming that he's got some type of help back there. And if you take a poor angle, now both of you are trailing the play. You're supposed to be over the top. Even if he's in a trail technique and slightly behind that receiver, he's supposed to have the comfort of knowing you're over the top. Somebody's going to make a play here. And if you take a poor angle, now both of you guys are in pursuit. And now that receiver is behind both of you guys. And at times you see him taking some pretty poor angles, not only in pass coverage, but also to the run and getting up there and filling that rush lane. He just doesn't do a great job to me of identifying what's the right angle to take to fill some of these rush lanes. So there's some issues here with Grant Delpit that dropped him out of the first round. I think you got tremendous value where you got him, and that's probably where he should have gone based off of 2019. But if you go back to 2018, if you're getting 2018 Grant Delpit, then this is a steal here in the second round. I comp him to Kenny Vaccaro, the ex-Texas Longhorn safety that was drafted by the Saints, now a member of the Tennessee Titans, playing some outstanding football for them. Grant Delpit has a lot of those same characteristics. I think he can actually be better than Kenny Vaccaro if he puts it all together and stays healthy and all of that good stuff. So we'll see if he can get some of those tackling. That's one thing Kenny Vaccaro did a lot better than Grant Delpit is tackle. Vaccaro made plays on the ball, but I think Grant Delpit has a little bit better ball skills, but he's going to have to clean that tackling up, or that could be a big-time issue for him at the next level. Second round, 44th overall selection, safety out of LSU. Grant Delpit for me is a 4. If he gets back to 2018 form, this is a 5. But right now, going off of 2019 and some of the things that I saw that plagued him last season, this is a 4. Still a hell of an upgrade for the Browns over Demarius Randall last year. I think this is a massive upgrade as a position of need, and I love this selection for the Browns as we get to their next pick, third round, 88th overall pick. Defensive tackle out of Missouri, Jordan Elliott is the pick. 6'4", 302-pound defensive tackle, 32-inch arms, 8.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 1 blocked kick in 2019 for the Missouri Tigers. For his career, 18 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 4 pass breakups, 1 block kick in his career. Had a second-round grade on Jordan Elliott. I'm a little bit higher on him than most because I see the upside and the potential, and I'm banking on that kind of shining through. He was my number 4 defensive interior defensive lineman in this draft. So that goes to show you that I felt like this guy had immense talent. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. Good build and proportion. He's built really well. When you see him, he looks the part, man, of a havoc-wreaking interior defensive lineman. He's got, to me, the same type of talent of the first-round pick from the Tennessee Titans a season ago out of Mississippi State. He's got that kind of talent, but it didn't always shine through on tape. And this is a guy that was one of the most heavily recruited defensive linemen in his high school draft recruiting class. So we're talking about a guy with immense talent. Didn't always play to that level, but you see flashes, and I saw enough of them to feel really good about him. Able to hold serve at the point of attack. Very, very stout at the point of attack. Does a good job of holding up and taking on guys and not allowing them to wash him out of gaps. A nice swim move. He's got a beautiful swim move. It's very quick. It's very effective. And it's the kind of swim move that wins you battles early on in the rep and gives you a chance to make a play on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And if that guy misses early, you could see a holding penalty if they get beat bad enough. And so he's got ways to impact the game with that swim move. There is more with the spin counter. So he's got this gorgeous spin counter move. It's a secondary spin move. He doesn't use it enough, which is why I said there's more to it. If he uses this more, this could be one of those weapons that's ultimately a game changer. All right. I mean, I watched him do it twice on tape, and I'm like, whoa. Both times I was floored, and I'm like, I need more. And so he didn't do it enough. But someone's got to get in his ear and tell him, look, dude, this is where it's at. You rush up the field initially and it's not working. Go to the spin immediately and watch it work. And so there's something more there with that spin counter. He's got a good motor. There have been questions about his motor. All right. I didn't see a guy that struggled with motor issues, and I saw a guy that was hustling and giving me enough effort. I was satisfied with his motor, but there have been questions about this guy's motor throughout his career at Missouri. Uses his hands well to defeat blocks. He's a guy that has been taught to use his hands very effectively, and we all know on the offensive line, on the defensive line, in the trenches, hand usage is key on both sides, offensive and defensive lines. If you can use your hands, if you can defeat the guy in front of you by using your hands, you're going to win a hefty percentage of the battles with those offensive linemen. Stack and shed capability. Capable of stacking and shedding. I talked about him being stout at the point of attack. He's got the ability to stack and then shed, disregard that offensive lineman, get to the ball carrier. Can be a productive sack guy at the next level. This is why I'm so high on him, because I see the value as a pass rusher. You know, I see him potentially having the ability to get you 8.5 in any given season, get you 10.5 sacks if he's right. I think he's got that kind of potential at the next level, which gets me excited because not a lot of these guys have that ability. Like even Brown, who was drafted in the top 10 by the Carolina Panthers, even I see some issues with him potentially being a sack guy at the next level. Derek Brown has some ability, can collapse the pocket, can do a little something, but I don't know if he's going to be a consistent sack guy, putting up numbers. I see Jordan Elliott having the potential to do that at the next level. We will see. All right. The numbers don't bear that out, obviously, which is why, you know, he's not a guy that was very high on some people's draft board. A little bit higher for me because I see the potential. I could be wrong on him, you know, But I think he's got a chance to put up some big-time sack numbers at the next level, especially with the talent that's going to be around him. Not a lot of talent around him at Mizzou. All right, he was the guy that teams really focused in on and made sure that he didn't wreck their game plan. Now you start adding a bunch of playmakers around him, Myles Garrett and such. Now it's a different story, you know. We'll see if he's able to take advantage of some of the players around him. Scheme diverse. You know, when you watch him, he's the kind of player that can play, in an even or an odd front. You know, he can play as a, three tech, which is preferably where I would play him, as a three tech in a base 4-3 defensive scheme. You know, but if you were playing a 3-4 defense, he'd be just as effective as a 5 technique, I believe. So either way, I think this guy is scheme diverse, and so love that about him as well. You go to his weaknesses, not as explosive off the snap. I think he can be a little bit more explosive off the snap. I think if he were able to time up snaps, be a little bit quicker off the snap, it'd make him that much more dangerous. And that's the separation between he and, a guy that goes in the first round, like the Titans' first round pick, Simmons last year. Simmons is explosive off the snap. I think Jordan Elliott lacks that explosion off the snap, and that's the separator. That's the big difference between a first round guy and Jordan Elliott going here in the third round. Has to work on putting all of the pieces together consistently. His hands, his rush plan, counters, etc. I talked about the counter spin move, doesn't use it enough. I talked about him having really good hands. Got to be better with that and take it to the next level. He got to have a rush plan. I need to see him put all of these things together. This guy was highly touted out of high school for a reason. I saw the flashes. I just want to see it all come together. Can be more disruptive in the run game. I think he can be a guy that can total more tackles for loss on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. I think he can do more damage up front in the run game because he's talented enough. His talents suggest that he can impact the game more in the run game, and I'm looking forward to seeing if he can do that or not. I liken him to Ashawn Robinson, one of the Bama boys about 4 years ago that was drafted. Him and Jaron Reed drafted in the same year. Ashawn Robinson was a second-round pick of the Detroit Lions, has been really solid in the league to this point. I see a lot of the same characteristics here in Jordan Elliott. I think he has a chance to really be effective and put up some big-time numbers as a pass rusher if he's able to put everything together. And I'm a little bit higher on him than most. And we'll see if it's premature or not. But in the third round, 88th overall selection, defensive lineman out of Mizzou, Jordan Elliott for me is a 4, man. I think this guy's talent is immense. I had a second-round grade on him. You get him in the third round. I think that's tremendous value. We'll see if I'm wrong about this guy, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that Jordan Elliott's going to finally put it all together in Cleveland and really be a big-time playmaker for you guys moving forward. We go to the next selection in this draft for the Browns. Third round, 97th pick overall. Linebacker out of LSU, Jacob Phillips is the pick. 6'3", 229 pounds, 32-inch arms, ran a 4.66 at the combine. I feel like he's one of those guys that really benefited from the national championship LSU Tigers and all the talent that was around him. He was solid, and the track record that LSU has of putting out quality linebackers the last 5 or 6 years has been stellar, and I think he kind of benefited off of that. I don't think he is all that great, not good enough to be selected in the third round at least, but we'll see. 7.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass breakup in 15 games for the aforementioned national championship LSU Tigers in 2019. For his career, 13.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 5 pass breakups, 1 INT, and a pick 6 in 39 games. I had a 4th round grade on him, so you weren't that far off, but again, thought the third round was a little early for him. If you ask me, I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. Strengths, steadying, calming influence on a defense. He was the leader of that defense, took over for the departed linebacker that was drafted in the first round by the Bucs last year. And he actually did a really solid job of of really maneuvering that defense, getting everybody lined up, and being a vocal leader for the LSU Tigers, taking over that role as leader of that defense. Hard hat and lunch pail type of defender. Nothing flashy here to see, folks. Not the explosive dynamic backer that you're looking for that LSU has produced over the last 5 or 6 years. He's not the Quan Alexander. He's not the Deion Jones type or the backer that was drafted out of LSU last year. But he's a quality linebacker, okay? Hard hat, lunch pail, does his job, does what he's supposed to do, is where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, that kind of guy. Finds the football consistently. I will give him credit. Wherever the football is, generally you're going to find Jacob Phillips not too far behind. He's usually wherever the ball is. And if he gets there, he's going to make the tackle, essentially. All right. And I put down in my notes, is where he's supposed to be. So that kind of goes in line with finding the football consistently. I mean, wherever the ball is, Jacob Phillips isn't going to be that far behind. High hit rate on tackle attempts. And we talked about a low hit rate for Grant Delpit. Well, he's the polar opposite of Grant Delpit in that department. Generally, if he lays hands on a guy, he's going down. And so love the fact that this is a guy that's a tackling machine. You need those guys. And not everyone's going to be a tremendous athlete. You need those glue guys. You need those guys that do the dirty work, and Jacob Phillips is one of those players. Has a tad bit of closing speed. Now, when he gets to build up his speed and there's a clear avenue for him, let's say he's spying a quarterback and the quarterback rolls out and he's able to just take off, that's when you see a tad bit of closing speed from Jacob Phillips. It's not a ton, but it's enough that he'll threaten some guys and force them to make a quicker decision than maybe they want to with the football. Weaknesses. Some guys can make you forget about their size and others can't. He can't. Okay. I remember when Telvin Smith came into the league at, 6'2", 215, I believe it was. And I looked at Telvin Smith and said, there's no way this guy's playing linebacker in the NFL. And 2 years later, I'm like, Telvin Smith is a beast. 6'2", 215, who gives a shit? 215, 215, all right? This guy can play backer at the NFL level. I look at Jacob Phillips, and I'm like, that 229 sure looks a little flimsy on you, bruh. And, there's other guys that have come in the league at 229. That's the going rate now for an athletically gifted linebacker, except he's not uber athletic. So instead of you saying to yourself, look, I can tolerate the 229 because this guy's running a 4.49 or he's running a 4.51, he's running a 4.66. And when guys lay hands on him, generally, he doesn't get off the block. And so I'm like, you look 229, bruh. And you're not fast. You can't overcompensate, with athleticism to make me forget that you're 229. So that's a little bit of a problem. Not your typical LSU athletic linebacker. I kind of mentioned that already. Don't want to continue to hammer that home, but it is what it is. He's not your typical, LSU linebacker. I talked about Deion Jones, Devin White from last year, Quan Alexander. Those are the gold standards, the guys that have come in the league and lit it up from LSU over the last 5 years or so. And it's just been this factory and another one this year that I believe is going to tear the league apart, that the Ravens got in the first round. And so he's not those guys. He's not. And it is what it is. He's a solid football player. Can't play man coverage and isn't reliable in zone either. He's just got limitations from an athletic standpoint. And there's times when you see him see it. He sees what's happening, and physically he just can't get there. He's not able to run with the guy. I remember watching him against Texas, first game of the season. And look, this is a mismatch. He shouldn't be a one-on-one in the slot with Devin Duvernay. That's a problem. Devin Duvernay is a 4'3" guy, and you're talking about a 4'6" guy. That's not fair. But Devin Duvernay is running an out route, and Jacob Phillips says, okay, I'm overmatched. He doesn't even try. He just tackles him, okay? Literally tackles him to the ground. And the official's like, dude, are you serious right now? And he throws the flag, but he understands I can't run with these guys. And so I think he's more of a first and second down backer at this point, but we'll see. In any event, I liken him to Levante David, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer linebacker out of Nebraska that's had a really solid NFL career. And if he turns out to be Levante David, you'll take that quickly and run with it, okay? So, and he's got that kind of potential. I think he does. So we'll see what happens. Third round, 97th pick overall. Linebacker out of LSU, Jacob Phillips for me is a 3. As we move on to the next selection in this draft for the Browns, 4th round, 115th pick overall. Tight end out of Florida Atlantic, Harrison Bryant is the pick. 6'5", 243 pounds, 31-inch arms, 4'7", 40. 65 grabs for over 1,000 yards and 7 scores in 13 games for his career. 148, grabs for 2,137 yards, 16 scores in 42 games. I thought this guy was going to go a lot sooner than he did. I had a day 2 grade on him, 2nd or 3rd round. I was shocked to see him not come off the board in day 2. I thought the latest he'd come off the board was the 3rd round. And to my surprise, here he is for you in the 4th round. So to me, this is tremendous value. And really, it's overkill because my question now becomes, David Njoku, if this guy, Harrison Bryant, comes in and is what you think he could be, right out of the gate, you see it and you're like, wow, this guy is tremendous. And Austin Hooper is being Austin Hooper. Does David Njoku become expendable? If a team has an injury at the tight end position and they come calling, is David Njoku available? We've heard all offseason that they love David Njoku. They love the work he's putting in. We know he didn't get along with Freddie Kitchens, so that was a strained relationship. Now it's a fresh start for him. And we know that Kevin Stefanski loves to run 2 tight end sets. Well, you got 3 tight ends now. Is this a sign of things to come that, Njoku may not be a part of the future? Maybe not necessarily getting traded this year, similar to what the Buccaneers have with 3 really good tight ends. You can have 3 tight ends. It's allowed, okay? You can have 3 really good tight ends on a team, but is the writing on the wall for Njoku? Because obviously Austin Hooper isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I'm just saying. But I love the selection. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. But size is the first strength. 6'5", 243. Yeah, he can get a little stronger, and he looks like a big receiver. Okay, so he can get a lot bigger. But at 6'5", 243, that's more than big enough to be a problem as a tight end. But if you want him to get better in the blocking department, that 243 needs to turn into 253 or 255. And I think that will happen over time. Athleticism, can't teach what this guy has in terms of athleticism. He's a big kid that can run. That 4.73 doesn't sound threatening, but when you watch it on the field, it's very threatening. And when you put it into this context, that some of the best tight ends in the league are in that 4.65 to 4.75 range, and I'm talking Travis Kelce, I'm talking Zach Ertz, that 4.73 looks a lot better on paper when you start comparing it to some of the better tight ends in football. So he's got athleticism. He's an easy, fluid mover, okay? A guy that gets around the field with no problems, a guy that doesn't have problems running routes and things of that nature. Speaking of which, solid route running ability. He's a guy that separated very easily at Florida Atlantic. I get it. It's Florida Atlantic, okay? I get the level of competition, not the greatest, but all I can ask you to do is dominate the level of competition that you're playing against, and that he did. So route running ability, very solid at this point of his career. Sells fakes well. He's one of those guys that, if you're running a bootleg and you want to sell that this guy's going to be down blocking and then peeling back off into the flat, he does a tremendous job of doing that. If you want him to sell, hey, I'm blocking, and then him go all the way across the formation and leak into the flat, he sells the hell out of these fakes. And all of a sudden you look up and Harrison Bryant is a wide ass open in the flats with 15 yards of real estate in front of him because he sells the hell out of these fakes. Physicality with the ball in his hands. Look, he's not going to make a lot of guys miss from a standpoint of juking anyone. But what he will do is run like an untamed, caged beast that's been waiting to get out. And when he gets the football in his hands, he's a load to bring down on the ground, which leads me to my next strength, yards after contact. That's where he really eats. Those 1,000 yards that he had receiving, a lot of them come after the catch. This is a guy that is able to get yards after contact and continue to keep his feet and keep chugging along. Production, big time numbers posted the last 2 seasons at Florida Atlantic, including over 1,000 yards receiving in 2019. Tremendous upside. I think this is a guy that's still scratching the surface of what he could be. Obviously, you want this guy to become a better blocker and a more well-rounded tight end, which is why he dropped in this draft. But that being said, he competes as a blocker, and that's my final pro. I know a lot of people beat up these tight ends, I'm included, for their lack of blocking prowess, but he shows the ability to want to get better. And look, all I need to see from a tight end at this level is that you understand that that's a part of the game. Some of these guys want no parts of blocking, and you can identify those guys very quickly. You know, a guy like Hunter Bryant out of Washington that went undrafted. Why did he go undrafted? Because the guy wants no part of blocking, and his athleticism wasn't off the charts to the point where you're like, look, we can ignore the fact that this guy doesn't block whatsoever because he's such an athletic marvel and freak. You better do something in the blocking department if you're not going to be a tremendous athlete. At least Harrison Bryant gives you the illusion, if he's not going to block, at least he's giving off the illusion that he's willing to give it a try. I see a guy that's willing to compete as a blocker. Needs some work, but he's willing to compete. Weaknesses, too many lapses in concentration, aka too many concentration drops. For a guy with this many catches and this many yards, you're expecting a guy to have flawless hands, catch everything, pluck it out of the air. He's dropping the football a little too much for my liking. And look, I know this guy's got really good hands. This isn't a matter of, man, the ball's beating him up. He's a body catcher, doesn't have natural hands. No, he's got natural hands. His problem is he's looking to make plays before he secures the rock. And so you get these concentration drops where he's looking to see what defenders are around him, where can he go with the football, and he hasn't secured the rock yet. And so you know the rules to the game and play. You can't run and gun. You can't have fun. You can't ball without the ball. So he just got to catch the football. All right. Used often as a flexed or detached tight end. He's a guy that he didn't line up a ton in a traditional inline tight end. And because of that, you know, not a lot of tape with him lining up in tight. Not a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to do it right off the bat. So, and look, that's okay because there's a place in the league for detached tight ends that only flex out into the slot and out wide. There's a place in the league for those guys now. So even if he can't get the blocking thing down pat, there are other guys that you have on your roster that can do that. We'll have to learn how to separate at the next level. For all the route running ability that I think he possesses and some of the things I think he does well, I do think there's a lot of meat left on that route running bone, and he's going to have to learn how to pick some of that meat off of that bone. He's going to have to be a better route runner. He's going to have to learn the subtle nuances, and I'd love him to soak up Austin Hooper knowledge, because Austin Hooper isn't the greatest athlete, and what he's learned how to do is, you know, the little subtleties at the tight end position, how to lean on a guy at the stem of a route, how to give him a little nudge. Don't extend the chicken wing, but just a little shoulder, a little push, and then boom, you break out. Now you've got 2 yards of separation. You know, he's going to have to learn those subtleties. All right. You've been killing the guy on the seam ball. Look like you're going up the seam and then break it back off. You know, that's how you create separation. And so if he's able to do that, you could have something here at the next level. And my comp for him is Tyler Eifert. You know, Tyler Eifert was never the greatest blocker, but when he was at his peak in Cincinnati, when he was healthy, man, was he a problem in the pass game. I see a lot of the same things here with Harrison Bryant. Similar size, similar skill set, similar talents. I think Tyler Eifert was a little bit more talented as a pass catcher coming out of Notre Dame and a much better blocker, but not to say that he was a tremendous blocker, but either way, I see a lot of the same characteristics here in Harrison Bryant. In the 4th round, 115th pick overall. Tight end out of Florida Atlantic, Harrison Bryant for me is a 4, man. I think this is a great pickup for the Browns. A nice steal here, and I think it's a peek into the future that maybe David Njoku isn't a part of the Browns' long-term future. We will see. As we go to the next selection in this Browns draft, 5th round, 160th pick overall, center out of Washington, Nick Harris is the selection. 6'1", 302 pounds, 32-inch arms, 5'1", 40. 12 games, 12 starts at the center position in 2019 for the Huskies. For his career, 42 games, 42 starts, 25 at center, 15 at right guard, 2 at left guard. So a little bit of versatility here. However, I think he is a guy that is strictly a center at the NFL level because of his size. I had a 4th round grade on this guy. I'll give you a little bit of background. If you go back to my combine video, I think it was day 1 that we saw the offensive lineman. Maybe it was day 2. Either way, I think it was day 1. One of the most impressive guys for me that day was Nick Harris. I was floored by his movement skills, his athleticism. It was my first exposure to him. And I walked away saying, that's a guy that I'm anxious to watch on tape. And it did not disappoint. And so I am a little higher on Nick Harris than most. I had a 4th round grade on him. You take him in the 5th round. So right then and there, you see that I think you got tremendous value. Strengths, easy mover, athletically gifted. We saw that at the combine. The tape complements that and hammers it home. Plays with an inferiority complex. And what I mean by that is, yeah, he's a short man. And when you watch him on tape, you can tell he's short. All right. Guys look like they're towering over him. You know, when I went back and watched him versus Auburn, and that's usually, if you play Auburn in the last 2 years where and you're an interior offensive lineman, that's the tape I want to watch. You play Alabama, that's the tape I want to watch because you're going up against studs. You know, Derek Brown and, you know, some of those guys, you're going up against studs. I want to see that. I want to see how you fared in that environment. And he held his own, man. He was fighting with Derek Brown. Derek Brown's got him by 5-6 inches, and it looks like it. But he held his own, man. He was in there scrapping and fighting, scratching and clawing. And this guy plays with an inferiority complex. He knows he's short. He's got that short man syndrome, and he's taking it out on the opposition, and I love it. Climbs to the 2nd level, gets to the backside cuts, and reach blocks with ease, man. There's so many scoop blocks where he's just scoop. It's like a chip, scoop, you know, and he's just scooping guys. It's beautiful, man, to watch him run his feet, turn his ass, and seal off a defender time and time again. It's just fun to watch. And so his movement skills are excellent. Low center of gravity wins him the leverage battle every single time. You know, there aren't many perks to being 6'1", but as an interior offensive lineman, one of the perks of being a little bit shorter than the guy in front of you is that you're going to win the leverage battle every time. You hear this adage all the time, and it's so true, especially in the trenches. Low man wins. Well, who's getting lower than Nick Harris at 6'1"? Not many guys, all right? And so he's got an advantage, a distinct advantage at 6'1" in the leverage department, and he uses that to his advantage. Reacts to color beautifully. What I mean by that is twists and stunts, and when guys are passing off linemen to him, if there's a late blitzer coming, a late safety blitz, a delayed blitz, a green dog, a guy supposed to be checking a running back out of the backfield, he's staying in on jet protection, and now he gets to come late, and he's double teaming somebody or he's helping somebody out. He reacts to that color so beautifully. You sneak nothing by Nick Harris, okay? Nothing slides, all right? I love it. Love it. Want more of it. He sustains, man. Like I said, he fights. He just fights. And one of those things that he does that is probably a nuisance to guys is that he sustains. He doesn't let you go. Once he latches on, good luck getting free, because he's got a Kung Fu G.I. Joe death grip. And once he latches on, he's going for the ride. And if you're going to run, you're going to have to run with 302 pounds of Nick Harris attached to you. Experience. Guy has 42 starts in the Pac-12. There's something to be said about that. And it's spread out across the interior positions on the offensive line, but he's got experience. All right. So he's battle tested. Weaknesses. Size and stature. Look, there's no getting around the fact that he's 6'1", 302 pounds. With his skill set, had he been 6'3", had he been 6'4", this guy's a second-round pick. This guy's no worse than a second-round pick. But because he's 6'1", you get him in the 5th round. I'm not going to kill him for his size because I love the way that he plays. His stature is a little, it's a little fleshy. When you look at him, he looks a little, rotund. There's a little bit of extra meat in his midsection. And you're like, probably not the most athletically gifted guy. Wrong, okay? Never judge a book by its cover. No positional flexibility. Although this guy played 3 different positions at Washington on the offensive line, at 6'1", and 32-inch arms, not going to be able to slide him over to guard. In a pinch, in a situation where you're down to, your last guard and he's one of your guys that you had up as a backup, he might be able to kick inside to guard for you, but more likely than not, you'll take your center that you currently have and slide him over to guard, and you put Nick Harris at center. There isn't many opportunities for him on the offensive line outside of center. When he gets beat, he holds, okay? That's the one thing about getting beat at 6'1" with 32-inch arms is that it's pretty damn tough to recover. Once you're beaten, you're usually beaten. And when he gets beat, his weapon of choice is to hold. And so you may get a couple of those from Nick Harris where he just gets beat off the snap and his only recourse is to just reach out and grab a guy. Doesn't generate movement in the run game. That's not his thing. At 6'1", 302, 32-inch arms, he's not pushing around a 6'5", 323-pound Derrick Brown. That's not happening. All right. But what he will do is he will run his feet, turn his ass, and seal off a 6'5", 323-pound Derrick Brown. He will do that. And so I'm not looking for Nick Harris to generate movement in the run game. That's not why I'm drafting him. What I'm drafting him to do is get to that reach block, to cut off that backside defender. What I'm getting Nick Harris to do is to get to that second level linebacker and seal his ass and get Nick Chubb into the secondary where he's now one-on-one with the safety. Good luck. That's what I'm drafting Nick Harris to do. Not to take a big behemoth nose tackle and run him 2 yards off the ball and create a new line of scrimmage. That's not what I'm looking for Nick Harris to do. So if that's what you're drafting him for, you got the wrong guy. I don't think that's what they're going to ask him to do. Kevin Stefanski runs a zone run blocking scheme, so he needs athletically gifted linemen. Nick Harris fits the bill. Love this selection. 5th round, 160th pick overall. Offensive lineman out of Washington. Nick Harris for me is a 4. I think you got a tremendous football player here. And despite the size, and I know I might be a little bit higher on him than most, he fits this system to a T, and you're going to get a good football player here in Nick Harris. As we wrap up this Browns draft here in the 6th round, 187th pick overall, wide receiver out of Michigan, Donovan Peoples-Jones is the pick. 6'2", 212 pounds, 33.5-inch arms, 4'4", 840 with a 44.5-inch vert. So he tore up the combine. He looks the part. Does he play the part? We'll talk about that. 34 receptions for 438 yards and 6 scores in 2019 to go along with 24 punt returns for 173 yards and no scores in 2019 for the Michigan Wolverines. For his career, 103 receptions for 1,327 yards and 14 scores to go along with 89 punt returns for 743 yards and 2 touchdowns. So there is a little bit of special teams value there. Had a 5th round grade on Donovan Peoples-Jones. If you've been listening to me throughout this process, I wasn't the biggest fan of his. I'm still not the biggest fan of his. But there is value late in the draft in a Donovan Peoples-Jones. And so, height, weight, speed specimen, especially as a slot option. Look, he's not a guy that you stick out wide. That's not his calling card. He's a big slot. He was best used at Michigan in the slot. That's where he's going to be best utilized at the NFL level. And we've seen the return of the big slot receiver. He's got all the things you're looking for in terms of a big slot receiver. Outstanding body control. I love the fact that this is a guy that can contort his body and attack the football in the air. He can make some really acrobatic catches in tight contested situations. So his body control is something that is a big pro for him. Willing to work for food. This is a guy that will block in the run game. He's got a big frame. I like the fact that he's using it for good. Some guys have a big frame and they use it for evil. He's a guy that actually puts it to good use. And so I love the fact that he's willing to work for food. Will compete for contested balls and make some plays. He's not one of those guys that's going to come down with, 70% of 50-50 balls. But if you throw up enough big-time grabs for him and opportunities, he's going to come down with his fair share of them, and make them in some tight contested situations, as I mentioned already. So I like the fact that he can go up and, being that he's a slot option, a lot of times in the nickels, with the nickel corners, you're looking at a 5'10", 5'11" guy. You're 6'2", 212 with some leaping ability. That usually bodes well for the quarterback if you're looking to get the football to somebody. So I think that's something that you may be able to take advantage of. Solid hands. This is a guy that has displayed the ability to snatch the football out of the air, strong hands in contested situations. So I think he can catch the football. Special teams value. I talked about the punt returns and things of that nature. So there is a little bit of that there with Donovan Peoples-Jones. You go to his weaknesses. Lacks acceleration and quickness and burst that the testing numbers suggest. When you watch him, he's sort of a monotone runner. There isn't, got you in first and second gear. Now I'm going to shift it into 5th gear and blow by you. It's kind of all the same. It kind of all bleeds together. Once he's running his fastest, there's no acceleration. There's no next gear, and so the quickness that you'd like from a guy in the slot, not necessarily what he has to offer. So a little disappointed with the numbers that he posted at the combine. You'd like to see them actually transfer over to the field, and you don't always see that with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Press coverage seems to be his kryptonite. That's why you can't play him out wide. Even though he's 6'2", 212, you're thinking, why can't I stick him outside? Because he can't go outside. He gets beat up outside. The big kids outside pick on him, all right? And so he's got to come back inside, all right? And that's okay. Not everybody is made to play with the big boys outside. It's tough, it's rough, it's rugged out there. And he's just not built for that. Guys beat him up at the line of scrimmage. They stay in his hip pocket. He can't separate. There's a reason why he never lived up to the hype at Michigan, all right? They had to figure out what to do with this guy because, they thought they were going to be able to play him everywhere, and they found out very quickly, nah, he's just a big slot. That's it. So press coverage is his kryptonite. Concentration drops. He's got natural pass-catching ability. He's got natural hands. But, there's that Ohio State game where he had several drops, and that does happen to him at times where he takes his eyes off the prize And that can get him into trouble sometimes. He just has to look the football in because you see this guy make some extraordinary catches. And there's this. And I can't let this go. Not one, I repeat, not one single 100-yard game at Michigan in his career. How do you do that? How do you not luck up? How do you not fall into 100-yard game in your career? All right. Now, I will cut him a sliver of a break. I will give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because he wasn't always playing with great quarterbacks. And there are a number of times on tape where I'm watching him wide ass open, and if the ball's put out in front of him where he can catch it in stride instead of having to dive backwards or slide down and make a sliding grab, that he might have been able to eclipse 100 yards in his career. But that being said, how is it that against Rutgers or one of these stinking ass teams that Michigan plays every year, how is it that against Illinois you can't get 100 yards in a game? There's something about that. There's something to that. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Anyway, an ankle injury limited his effectiveness in the 2019 season. And 2019 was not his best campaign. But again, he didn't have a 100-yard effort in 2018. Didn't have a 100-yard effort in 2017. So it's not like, he was putting up these monster numbers. And 2019 was a really big, really down year for him. A big drop off. Nope. Same Donovan Peoples-Jones as always. And so with that being said, my comp for him is Louis Murphy, the ex-Florida Gator that, had a really solid NFL career, but was a big slot, really, is what he amounted to. And I see the same things here for Donovan Peoples-Jones. See a lot of the same qualities as a Louis Murphy. And so we'll see what Donovan Peoples-Jones brings to the table. I'm not the biggest fan, but as I mentioned before, there is value in drafting a guy like this at the back end of the draft. And because of that, 6th round, 187th pick overall, wide receiver out of Michigan, Donovan Peoples-Jones, for me, is a 3 to wrap up this Browns draft. Hell of a haul for first-time GM Andrew Berry, the youngest GM in the league at 32 years of age. So I love what he's done here. I think he has brought in some very talented players. And this is a far cry from the approach that we've seen from the Browns the last, 3 or 4 years of, hey, gobble up as many selections as you can. Let's come away with 10, 11 draft picks. Let's throw, as many darts at the dartboard as we can. And I just felt like it was a lot of quantity over quality in those drafts. This felt like quality over quantity, and I loved it. And so we'll see if it pans out. But a strong offseason coupled with a strong draft, coupled with a breath of fresh air in the front office and at the head coaching position, could spell for a big 2020 for the Cleveland Browns. We shall see. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, and my 2020 NFL draft breakdown of the Cleveland Browns. If it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Make sure you subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Make sure you like this video. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, but also hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss a thing. If you want to stay abreast of what's going on here, some other ways to do it via socials. Find me on Twitter at Louie T Network, on IG Louie T Network _, and don't forget about the Louie T Network podcast, putting out some heat there as well. Brand new episode up wherever you get podcast episodes. The Louie T Network podcast is available. That being said, you guys take care. I will see you guys in a bit. We will reconvene at a later date and time to talk more Cleveland Browns football. Don't miss it. Until then, stay safe, take care, have a good one.